Before we get into it, Making Sense is stoked to be supported by KiwiBank. We've teamed up to bring you insight directly from their people, the experts who live and breathe this stuff every day. It's not the outdated stuff that worked 5 years ago. It's what's happening right now in the industry to help you make the most of your money. This is Making Kiwi Better Off. This is Kiwi.
All right, team, we're back with another rant, followed by your questions. You know I love these solo episodes, so I have some thoughts first on FU money and exactly how much you need in order to be able to just quit your job. And then we've got all of your questions that you've built up on the way to quitting your jobs. So let's get started. If you have ever wondered how much cash you might need to quit your job, let me tell you, from someone who has built herself up from nothing to become someone who not only needed that FU money to quit her job, but had it and was able to walk away from a horrible, toxic situation. FU money has meant that I was able to quit, to say FU to a bad situation and start my own business. Now, do you know what I needed to do that? First of all, financial privilege. I'm the main earner in my household, but I also had savings, investments, and enough financial cushion to try out the new business without putting my family in the poorhouse. And that came from 7 years of researching and writing about money and putting everything that I learned into practice. It was so funny when everything went down. I had so many people message me and say, did they think that you only wrote about FU money and that you didn't have any? You gotta wonder. But no, I've been putting everything into practice this whole time. And now here I am, having set up my own business as an independent financial journalist, partly thanks to that FU money. And I want to let you know there is a world where you could create your own version of it. Because I'm not someone who came from private schooling or a big inheritance or, to be honest, a tech career. I'm someone who came from journalism, famously underpaid. And I used knowledge to build this. So if you're wondering if you'd ever be able to build up to an FU fund, pull the pin on whatever you're wanting to pull the pin on, here's what you need to know. Starters, what is FU money? Now I have to, keep this a little bit neutral because some people watch this with their kids. Some people have it playing in the car. So I can't say the word, but we all know what the word is. FU money is a magical stack of cash that lets you walk away from a bad job, bad relationship, or really anything that isn't working for you. Look, the reality of our world is that it often takes money to get out of those bad situations. Most of us aren't okay with just going to live under a bridge until we figure it out. Being able to walk away without torpedoing your life is not just some personal finance fantasy. It's real and it's achievable at multiple levels. Now, that's the key to this. There are levels to FU money. That means you can build up some level of being able to rage quit and make it fit your life. So let's start at the beginning. FU money. Funny enough, it seems that Lucy Liu coined the phrase. Yes, the actress. Love her. If you were around in the 90s and early 2000s, you remember her. She's gorgeous. There's a clip that does the rounds online every so often, and it just gets me every time. And Lucy Liu just casually explaining, cool as ever, why she worked so hard early in her career. Now, I don't want to get into trouble for copyright, so I'm just going to read out what she says. She says the actual word, but I'm going to have to, like I said, some people have kids in the car. I worked a lot in order to just have money. It was called FU money. If you have it and something's not working out and they say, you have to take this job or you're fired, you can be like, F you. It's iconic. And she's absolutely right. In a moment where it's all just hitting the fan, it gives you choices. The opportunity to find somewhere new to live, keep paying your bills, find a better situation without the stress of life's financial realities just crashing in on you. And the best part about FU money is that just having it means you rarely need to use it. If people know that you have the ability to walk away, they often treat you more respectfully from the start. But okay, sometimes your bluff gets called. You have to decide if it's actually time to use your stash. And in that case, the question is, how much do you actually need? Now, this is something of a how long is a piece of string question, or rather, how big an FU do you want to deliver? So I told you that there are levels. So let's break them down. Level 1 is the breathing space FU money. What it looks like? About 3 months of your core expenses. FU money might mean just enough cash to cover the necessities. Rent, groceries, basic bills for a few months. Now, I'm not talking 3 months of your pay or your salary, but 3 months worth of your core expenses that you can't avoid paying in that time. Add up non-negotiables for every month. So we're talking rent, mortgage, utilities, groceries, basic transport, not including your commute if you've just rage quit, and then multiply that by 3. That is your level 1 FU money target. So if you get a horrible new boss or a client that makes your skin crawl, you can pull the pin, walk out that door without having to frantically start job hunting the very next morning. You could even stretch this money a little further by taking on freelance or part-time or lower paid jobs in the meantime. It is just the smallest taste of FU freedom, just enough to remind you that life is more than tolerating nonsense from those who don't respect you. And even if you don't have exactly 3 months saved, having something, even just a month's worth, gives you a sliver of freedom. And that is where it all starts. Now, level 2 is the recover and refresh FU money. What it looks like? About 6 months of your salary. Now you're hitting the zone where you could afford a real break. Depending on how bad the situation got before you pulled out your FU stash, you might need to recharge and clear your head. If you've got 6 months of your salary tucked away, you can pull the pin on that toxicity and maybe travel for a bit. Go for a full reset. Figure out your next move at a seaside cafe rather than a stuffy office. This level lets you be more selective. You don't have to jump into the first job offer you get, but you can be intentional about hunting out something that aligns with your values or that even truly interests you. You could even hit pause in order to upskill, take a course, start a small business that you've always suspected would be a winner. You've got the time to truly step back, reassess, and then take that confident next step forward. Level 3, the I might go back to work when I'm bored FU money. What that looks like? Well, now we're talking a solid 6-figure investment portfolio worth maybe 2 years of your salary. Now, this is where things start getting really interesting. At this stage, you're not fully financially independent, but you're damn close. You've got enough money to take a mini retirement, maybe a couple of years out of the workforce without stressing about how to fund it. Maybe you want to spend more time with your kids while they're young. Maybe you want to write that book, launch that business, test drive a new career path. Whatever it is, you have the freedom to try with this one. You'll probably need to head back to career mode at some point, but it'll be on your terms and your own timeline. And that's what this level really gives you, a bridge from one life stage to another without the financial panic. Level 4, the you're never telling me what to do ever again FU money. What it looks like? Well, now we're talking around 1 million or more, and it needs to be invested. Now we're talking about true financial independence, where you could walk away and just live off investments instead. At this level, you never have to work again, unless you want to. The math here is simple. If you invest in something like a share market index fund, you can withdraw around 4% per year without running out of money. So with $1 million invested, you could safely pull out $40,000 a year, which, when you're not commuting or buying office clothes or stress spending on takeaways, that's actually pretty livable. If you've paid off your house, even better. But I think you could still make this work without that. At this level, work becomes a choice instead of a necessity, and you can look for fulfilling projects, negotiate your rate at leisure, knowing that it's a nice to have instead of a need. And ironically, when you get to this point, you rarely have to say "f you" at all. Oop, I said it. Ha! Why waste breath on negativity when you can simply avoid people and scenarios that drain you? You're focused on finding the good stuff in life and enjoying it, not being forced into choices out of financial fear. And surprisingly, that means you end up choosing the rooms that you're in, and you often do better for it and don't have to say "f you" at all. That's the beauty of FU money. It's not one size fits all. You can see there are levels here. Maybe right now, level 1 is the goal, just enough to breathe. Maybe you're aiming for level 3, where you can step back, design your life on your terms. The FU levels show us one thing pretty clearly, that there are different paths to do it, but there's a version of FU cash that can work for almost anyone. I mean, this is true for money in general, but it's definitely true for FU money. Really, this is less about the option to be able to throw deuces at the boss on your way out the door and more about the ability to take control of your own path through life. It's about making life decisions less driven by fear or necessity and more about what enriches your days. And look, Lucy Liu was so right. Everyone should want FU money, and now the only question really is, what level are you aiming for? Don't forget to stay smart, stay strategic, start building that FU stash. Hit subscribe so that you stay on top of your money. And stick around. We're going to take a beat, and then I'm asking your questions to help you get there.
Life is full of ups and downs, so no matter what your everyday looks like, KiwiBank has the products and services to help you manage your money your way. To find out more, head to kiwibank.co.nz. This is making Kiwi better off. This is KiwiBank.
All right, we're back. We've got the questions that you guys sent to me through social media. I will rip through a few. First of all, how do funds make money for people? Now, there's actually a few different type of funds you can get. There's funds for everything. Most people, when we talk about an investment fund, they're thinking about the share market. You can also get funds that invest in pretty much anything. Some of them will invest in gold, or there's crypto funds now. There are even property funds. A lot of those are commercial property instead of residential property, like the house you live in. Commercial property is like shops and malls and things. So there's a fund for anything. But what most people are thinking about when they're investing in a fund is investing into the share market. So when you're investing into the share market, you are just investing into businesses. So Apple, your phone, or Procter & Gamble, shampoo, things like that. You can buy into all of these big companies. And when you do that, you've become a part owner of that company, right? And so when you think about it, we know how businesses make money. They go and they sell products and services. They make money from that. And then the owners get to keep that money. Well, if you're a shareholder, then you get to have a slice of that profit. So two main ways that you make money from the share market, and that translates to, if you've bought into a fund, they've just bought lots of little businesses. So first of all, the business goes out, it makes money, it has a profit. A couple of times a year, they'll say, hey, we've had this much profit and we're sharing it with shareholders. You get 25 cents per share. So you own 5 or 10 shares, you get that much money. Great. And so that is, if you think about property investing, that's like someone paying rent and you get the rent from it. That's income. Now let's keep comparing it to property investing. People will often talk about the capital gains, the price of the house, the house goes up in value and you can sell it for more money than you paid. Same thing can happen with shares. If that business is doing well and more people want to buy it, it's the same as bidding against each other on TradeMe or eBay or whatever else. More people want to buy in, that pushes the price up. It's gone up in value and you could choose to sell it and make money from that. So that's your two main strategies. It is from the income coming in or the value going up. And a fund just invests into things that do that. Now, a fund could also be, like I say, buying into gold, buying into crypto, buying into some property, and it might make money from those in similar ways. Value goes up or it makes money from something. But that is how a fund will make money. A fund just pools a bunch of investors together and you buy a bunch of stuff, more than one business at once or more than one asset or something like that. And the idea is you make money from it. And then usually it might be a couple of times a year that you will get paid out some money from that. But it totally depends on which fund. Now, when you buy into it, legally, they have to tell you what the plan is. So you get what's called, at least in New Zealand, a product disclosure statement. Sometimes it's got slightly different names in other countries, but it'll be something along those lines. There will be product disclosure, and they tell you what they've invested into and how often they make payouts. So that'll all be there. And if it doesn't make sense, you call them or you email them because they want you to invest through them. And so you ask them to explain it. And if they don't explain it, invest elsewhere. That's a red flag. Don't let anyone make you feel stupid. It's a sign of great intelligence that someone can make a complicated system sound simple. So if they're making it still sound complicated, it's not you that's stupid, it's them. They're bad at explaining. Go to someone else who's better. Don't ever let anyone from the financial world make you feel stupid. Next question. Any financial or coping tips for small businesses right now? It's pretty rough out there. I'm a hospitality business. First of all, thoughts and prayers. And also love you because I'm an absolute coffee addict and sweet treat addict. So I hope you keep going. Yeah, it's tough out there right now. Look, the best I can give you is sort of the forecast that a lot of those very smart economists have been giving us. The second half of last year was probably, and again, I don't have a crystal ball. If I did, I'd be a multi-millionaire. I wouldn't just be comfortable. I'd be stinking rich if I had a crystal ball. So this is just the best info I've got for you. But a lot of those smart economists have said the second half of last year was as bad as it's going to be. We're in a little bit of recovery mode first half of this year. And then the hope is the second half of this year is when things start to get better. So that's the plan. How things work out in reality, who knows? Did we all know a pandemic was coming? No, we did not. So anything can happen at any time, but that's the hope. And often these forecasts are correct, or at least mostly correct. The details tend to change. If you can just hang in there, give yourself the grace of knowing that things are genuinely tough right now. It's not that you're bad at business. It's that it is hard and that hospitality is seen as a nice to have. Also, be really proactive. Don't wait for it to get really bad and then be operating from a place of panic and fear. And I have 1 week before the lights shut off, because then you will find you don't have many options. You want to act as soon as you can, because the more time you have, the more options you have. So keep an eye on what your competitors are doing. How are they surviving? What are they putting into place that seems to be working from them? Can you do an option that's similar to that? You don't have to copy other people, but you sure can take inspiration. And then, looking for those services that you can give that are maybe the less cost to you, but other people are willing to do more, to pay more for them. How can you get the most out of the products that you're good at? How can you lean into what's gone well for you? They say that often 20% of a business is what makes 80% of the money. And that is certainly true in my business. What is actually making you money? What can you do more of right now on that? And is there anything that, you maybe feel like, oh, I really like doing that though, but it doesn't make me much? Well, now is not the time for that. I'm so sorry to say that. I'm not unsympathetic to that. We all like doing the nice things, but you can't do anything nice if your business hasn't survived. So now is the time to really knuckle down on what works, what's good, and getting rid of the nice to haves, unfortunately, because it is survival mode for a lot of people. I hope that you make it through to those better times. The better times are coming. They always have before. It's just how long it takes. Ooh, I like this one. How's life as a business owner and no boss? It's great. I've always said that my favorite bosses have been extremely hands-off. I've had a couple of bosses in the past who I still chat with all the time. And one of them actually said to me when I moved on to my next job, I said to her, I was like, you have been the best boss. And one of my great regrets about going to this new job, it was an internal promotion. I said, one of my great regrets about going to this job is that I won't be reporting to you anymore. And she said to me, oh, I kind of feel like I really wasn't your boss. I didn't really manage you. You kind of managed yourself. I was like, I know. That's what made you so great. I've never been good at having a boss, at having a manager. With the benefit of hindsight, I think I was always going to end up working on my own. I have very firm ideas about what works well and what's a good idea to do. And I'm not good at taking instructions from mediocre men. I can say that now. And so it didn't really work out for me when I ran into a couple of mediocre men. And so here I am now on my own, no longer working with mediocre men. I will say as well that all of my very firm ideas about how to do things right turned out to be absolutely correct because this business is going great. So there we go. It's funny, isn't it? Because look, I don't mean to be glib because I have a lot of friends still in the media industry, and actually journalism is really important. And I think one of the reasons I stayed in journalism as part of sort of mainstream news for so long is I really believe in it. I really believe in it. And I see what's happening to mainstream news and it makes me sad. All the job cuts, the in-depth reporting getting chopped. It makes me sad because it's super important. And yet, I've gone out on my own. My business is kind of convoluted now, but the best way to describe it simply is it's an independent media business. And I'm really good at the content. I'm really good at communicating personal finance concepts. But I will say personal finance is very different from small business. And some of the small business stuff I've had to learn in order to manage my own business is tricky and not necessarily my strong suit. And yet I'm doing really well here. I'm fine. I'm good. And so I look at some of the things I see traditional media companies doing, and I'm like, I know it's hard out there, but how are you messing it up this badly? You do have more options than you're making out. However, I'm no longer in that world, partly because they didn't want to hear from people like me. So I simply hope that a lot of my former colleagues, the journalists who are on the front lines, who are trying really hard to get good information out to people, I just hope they stay employed, and I hope that the people in charge of the business decisions start making better ones. But me, I'm good. I'm loving it. It is so good. In charge of my own destiny, and I love it. Did you set any New Year resolutions? Are you on track to them or not? I like New Year resolutions. I like the idea of it as a reset time. It's nice to have that sort of cultural moment of reset, look at things, how's it all going? Do I want to pivot? But I am also someone who's I'm almost too good at setting resolutions. They come all the time. I always have multiple goals going. And actually, What I'm most trying to do right now is appreciate the things I've built, because you can do this thing where you're like really close to a goal, and right as you almost hit it, you move the goalposts. You're like, yeah, we've almost got that. Okay, next goal. And you don't take the moment to celebrate where you are. And if you do that all the time, you're going to miss the beautiful life that you're building. You're never going to appreciate anything you've built. You're never going to pat yourself on the back and say, hey, good job. And like, we just need that as humans. We need to give ourselves that moment of, you did really well, actually. Like, just take a beat. Enjoy that. Good job. And so, yes, I have things I'm continually working on. I want this podcast to be bigger. I want to be keeping sort of, as a woman, the physical recovery after having a baby. I'm still working on that too. All sorts of things. But I think what I'm actually most trying to do is actually be a little bit more in the moment and a little bit less goal focused, and just appreciating where I'm at. How are your boys doing? Kids and hubby? Thanks, they're doing great. I will say, having 2 children, both boys, and a husband, I'm so outnumbered in this house. It's just me and Banana the cat. We are the only girls. And Banana is named Banana because she's a bit of a banana. She's an idiot. So I am the only thinking female in the house. And boy, do I feel that some days. Some days I just feel this wave of masculine energy, and I'm just like, oh God. And like, not to jinx myself because accidents happen, but that's as much as we're planning to do for our kids. 2 is good for us. And so I'm sort of like, oh man, like the energy is never going to get balanced out in here. It's only going to get stinkier and more masculine and more testosterone filled. But it's so good. Like, I'm so lucky to be surrounded by these wonderful people who put up with my nonsense. And the fact that, work from home, I get to actually see them and spend time with them. I wish I could tell you more about my kids. I said in a previous episode about how, I try really hard to respect my kids' privacy, so I don't talk about them much. And yet, in my personal life, they are the center around which everything else is built. And so sometimes I feel like I almost can't share any of my personal life because all of my personal life is kids' stories. So they're great though. And I wish I could tell you more about them because they're hilarious and they're so cute. Speaking of, we are almost out on time because I think I hear my husband is actually running things with the bubba right now. But I think I hear a bubba who has woken up from his nap. So this is the last one for us, and then I'll be going through to have a wee snack with my little dude. But benefits of rent vesting over using a deposit to buy a first home. So for anyone who hasn't come across this before, rent vesting would be when you are renting your own home and then you are investing money elsewhere to make sure that you are still building up an asset, but you might have more options. You maybe don't want to buy a home right now for whatever reason. You asked about benefits because I think this is the thing. I love that you've asked about the benefits of that because I think we do talk so much about how important it is to buy your own home that we can lose that actually sometimes it's not a good idea. And there are times when it is not a good idea to buy your first home or your own home or whatever. So you might be in the early stages of your career or just at a stage in your career where you need a little bit more flexibility. You might need to be able to move for promotions or opportunities. You might not be home very often. It might not make sense for you to have this big tie. Or maybe you could just afford to buy a house, but you're not really very sure on the mortgage repayments. Like if interest rates go up even a little bit, you're going to be in trouble. Do you know what's worse than not having bought your own home? Is having bought one, failed to make the payments, and then the bank sells it and you've got nothing. That is not good, my friends. That is not good. So maybe you need the flexibility in your life, or maybe you're just not sure of the finances. Then yeah, it can be a great idea to stay renting, keep that flexibility, and channel your money into the share market or into property investment if that's what you'd prefer, or whatever else. That can be a fantastic thing. And this is why I always say there is no one way to build up with your money. It starts off with your life. What do you want from your life? What is your ideal happiness? And then how do you work backwards from that with your money to make that happen? This is not about building up a stack of cash to hoard and being like, yay, good for you, you have lots of money. This is about building your ideal life. The reality is, most of the time it takes money to make that happen. It certainly has for me. It certainly has for a lot of other people. What do you want out of life? How do you work backwards from that? So if you want flexibility, or if you're not sure that long term you could make those mortgage repayments, cool, rentvest. Know that that's an option for you. And then later in life, if you say, actually, now I'm at a time where I want to settle down, I'm maybe thinking about having kids, or I want to have a dog, or all of those things where like owning your own home might be better, or I've built up my career and I'm staying in one spot for longer, and I want to take advantage of that by having a lovely home that's my own. If you've been investing that money all the time and it has been building up and going to work and earning more for you, then you probably have a great little deposit by then sitting there ready to go, and you can just buy a house. Great. Just make sure that whichever way you're going, you do have some sort of investment or asset building up, because what you don't want is to just be living payday to payday, whichever it is. There's so many options for making sure that you're not living payday to payday, but that's what you want. You do want some sort of future you fund, which is different from the other FU fund that we started talking on this episode about. However, that is everything for this episode. Hopefully this helps you build up that FU stash. If you want to stay on top of your money, then of course subscribe to Making Sense wherever you are currently listening to this podcast. We've got the Spotify and the Apple version for if you want to be listening to just audio in the car. We've got YouTube for if you want to be able to see the weird facial expressions I make when I talk. Subscribe to both, because we sometimes have different things on the different channels. Of course, you can also send me your questions for next time so that I make sure that I ask them in a future Ask Me Anything. It is Frances Cook NZ on Instagram, Facebook, and TikTok, and a few other places as well. Until next time, though, have a great day.
Just a note before you go. This podcast can only give you general information about how things work in most cases. It's not individual financial advice. We're all different, so some of this might not apply to your specific situation. Take what works for you, ignore the rest. If you're after individual financial advice, a financial advisor is always the best bet.